Hi everyone, welcome to Business in Canada Do It Right and me, Eugene Jakubov. Today I would like to speak about the difference between federal and provincial incorporations in Canada. What do these two systems mean? How to approach your decision, which of them serves you better? And also we'll try to clarify some of the most common confusions that I see from our clients with regards to these two systems of incorporation that operate concurrently in Canada. So indeed, in Canada, we can register a company federally under the Canada Business Corporations Act and by the Corporations Canada, or provincially under the local Provincial Business Corporations Act through one of the local ministries that facilitate this process. And the problem is that the laws and the rules that apply to the registration, mandatory requirement, maintenance, keeping your company in good standing, are different from one jurisdiction to another, and definitely between federal and provincial jurisdictions. And these are the differences that I would like to address today and clarify some of the confusions. So first question would be with regards to the geographical limitations, where people think that the federal corporation could operate anywhere in Canada, while the provincial corporation will be limited only to the province of the registration, and this assumption is incorrect. From this perspective, federal and provincial corporations would be absolutely identical. Both can operate anywhere in Canada, so Ontario Corporation can supply its services or products anywhere in other province in Canada, just like federal corporation, and both can operate outside of the country. So there is no difference between these two with regards to the jurisdiction of their registration. And what's important also is that the rules that apply to the extra provincial registration from each of these two types of corporations would be identical, which means federal or provincial that establishes permanent presence in other province rather than the province of its registration would need to register there extra provincially as well. Tax rates. Sometimes our clients, again, mistakenly think that the federal corporation would be subject to the federal income tax, while provincial to the provincial income tax. And again, this is incorrect. There's no difference between these two types of incorporations. Federal corporation and provincial are being taxed based on the province of the registration because the whole system is based on the provincial logic, where we have the federal component of the income tax that applies to every corporation across Canada, and then the provincial component that is being added to it depending on the province of your registration. Of course, the extra provincial registration will add one more layer of complication, but it will add it equally and identically to federal or provincial corporations. So the tax rates, the two similar corporations, one federal, one provincial, operating identical business, operating similarly, would be paying the same tax rate at the end of the day. Name protection. So indeed, federal provides a little bit better protection, and the reason for that is because once incorporated federally, no one else in Canada will be able to register a corporation with the same name, while provincial corporation provides the same protection only in the province of the registration. So let's say if we registered federal corporation in Ontario with the name ABC Services Inc., no one else will be able to register the same name for the corporation anywhere in Canada, while Ontario Corporation will not prevent me from registering ABC Services Inc., let's say in British Columbia. But what we have to keep in mind is that the corporation name and business name are not the same. Essentially, if you have registered the company, even federally, with the ABC Services Inc., and they really love the name, I can try and operate my business, store, website, office under the business name ABC Services. In many provinces like Ontario, for example, the business name DBA certificate registration doesn't require the validation of the name, so I don't even have to prove that my name is not confusing to the existing registration. And if you actually want to protect your name, rather than emphasizing your attention on the federal corporation, I would suggest look into the trademark. It's a little bit more expensive, of course, more complex, but this is the actual and true protection that your business, your product, or your service could get rather than from the federal incorporation. Another reason why I think that the benefit is minor is because in most of the cases when there is a company already registered with the name ABC Services Inc., let's say in Ontario, and they have a client from British Columbia, I would always say to the client, why would you go with the same name? If your company would grow across Canada or internationally, you essentially and eventually you will have to deal with that problem that there's a company with exactly the same name already registered in other province. So unless you 100% confident that you will not grow beyond the boundaries of your province, differentiate your name, add some distinctive term to make sure that if you grow, you will be able to do so using the same name across all the provinces in Canada. Next question is a 25% requirement. And here, this is the major source of the differences and confusion among our clients. The confusion arises from the question of what does that mean, to which content do 25% apply. And first, I would like to clarify that the 25% apply only to the directors of a corporation. Some of the jurisdictions, and the first among them is federal, require mandatory in order to register and keep your corporation in good standing to have 25% of directors as Canadian citizens or permanent residents. It does not apply to the shareholders, which essentially means that if you are a foreign incorporator but you have your team in Canada, you can incorporate a company in Canada, appoint someone from the Canadian team to be a director in the company to comply with the 25% requirement, but you do not necessarily have to give them shares. You still can remain 100% shareholder, non-Canadian resident. Another requirement from this perspective is that either citizen or PR would be living in Canada. So if you're a Canadian citizen that lives in other country and wants to incorporate federally, you yourself will not comply with the requirement, because in order to comply, you need to live 185 days a year in Canada, and if you live anywhere else, you do not comply. So federal incorporation, some other provinces have this requirement. On the other side, such provinces in Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia do not have this requirement, and they allow nowadays to incorporate, maintain, operate your company 100% owned and managed by non-Canadian residents. Ontario was added to this group very recently, about a year and a half ago. The law was changed, and the requirement of the 25% of Canadian citizens to be directors was cancelled in Ontario, which I think positions to the Ontario is the most beneficial and most advantageous jurisdictions for incorporation for non-Canadian residents. I'll talk about it in a second. Another point of confusion, or a little bit of a mixed information that you can find online, is with regards to the federal corporation and provincial registration. And the point arises from the fact that there is no such thing as a corporation that is not registered in at least one province where its head office is located. So federal incorporation, no matter where you register, will require to register extra provincially in at least one province where its head office is located, and there's no way around that. Now, Ontario nowadays is the most cost-effective and efficient way to achieve the purpose, and the reason for that is Ontario is the only province in Canada that does not require you to pay extra provincial registration fee when you register federal corporation in Ontario. And the second reason for that is because Ontario extra provincial registration could be done as a part of the original federal incorporation. So when you go through the incorporation stages, you could choose the option to submit the extra provincial registration for Ontario as a part of the same process. The federal incorporation database will even populate the form for you, so you will need literally to add a couple of items, and then you pay the federal incorporation fee, and you're good to go. Any other province, the process will be more cumbersome. Most of the provinces, all of them, actually will require you to pay additional extra provincial incorporation fee, which is somewhere between $300 to $600. And most of the provinces would also require you first to finalize the federal incorporation, get the certificate and articles of incorporation, and then prepare paperwork or online application for the extra provincial registration with the registrar of those provinces. So much more cumbersome and complicated process. Anyone can do it anyway, but Ontario, I believe, is just more preferential from this perspective. So now how it will apply, how these different systems would apply to different types of incorporators. Canadian incorporators, meaning you're a Canadian citizen or PR. In Ontario, you would prefer to register federally. Also because of that additional layer of your corporation's name protection, no one else in Canada will be able to name their corporation with the same name, but also because it will be cheaper and more streamlined process. If you are in any other provinces, provincial would be your default decision, but not necessarily the only right one. It is just simpler. It does not require you this dual stage of federal and then extra provincial registration does not require you to pay fees twice. But if you plan to operate international business, you want to work with foreign governments, foreign institutional organizations, larger clients, participate in RFQs or bids, federal could be a good solution for you. And the reason for that is because your certificate of incorporation will be issued by the government of Canada with all the Canadian reference on the documents that you will be presenting to your clients, to your potential partners. And I think for this specific benefit as a Canadian reputation, that additional layer of complex registration and payment, a little bit more of a registration fees, could be worth it. For non-Canadian residents, which means the business owners or individuals that do not reside in Canada and want to open a business in Canada as a part maybe of their international development strategy, or sometimes those who are in Canada but just without a permanent status, usually work permit or student visa, I think that the provincial registration is a better solution because it does not require you to appoint 25% of directors as Canadian citizens or PRs, which means you do not need to rely on someone, you do not need to entrust someone with your business operations, and you could have a company 100% registered, owned, operated, and managed by non-Canadian residents. And again, I think that Ontario currently is the best province, both from the perspective that its system is more modernized. It was implemented just about a year and a half ago. And because Ontario is the biggest province, the center of the financial hub. But of course, if you, let's say, look to incorporate a shipping company or something that relates to the international transportation, British Columbia, Nova Scotia could be other options for you. This brings my presentation to an end. I hope I was able to clarify the confusions that many people have with these two systems operating together. Here's my contact information at the bottom. Please do not forget to subscribe, help us grow, reach more entrepreneurs in Canada and worldwide. Leave your comments in the comments section below. Also, if you have suggestions for the new topics for me to cover, please leave your comments. I will review them, and if I can, I will produce those videos. Now, as usual, have a nice day, good luck with your business, and I'll see you soon with new presentations. Bye-bye.